Hello YouTube, this is Dazzathecameraman. Today is Saturday, June 24th, New Zealand time, and I'm happy to have Tiffany, Queen of Hooks, here with me in the Hangout, and hopefully we may have Jerry join us as well. So welcome along, Tiffany.
Hi.
And we are going to be discussing one of Nibiru News, Nibiru Planet X 2016, Nibiru.
So welcome along.
Nibiru Planet X, The Awakening, and all of his other names that he's using in one of his most recent videos, which is since when did planets leave streams of light behind them? So we're going to look at those videos and see if we can figure out what we're seeing in the video that Scott claims is not Venus. Tiffany, do you want to give us a bit of a background on this, what we've been looking at?
Yeah, well, when I saw it yesterday and I pulled it up on stereo, the first thing I noticed was it was brightened on his video. He had brightened that image. So I spent a little time researching, trying to figure out what it was, and then I reached out to you to see if we could get together to because I was pretty sure it was a camera artifact or either the tail of Venus. I even looked into that, trying to figure out what it was. So I spoke with you and Astronomy Live, and we kind of figured out exactly what it was.
Right, so here is the video that we're talking about. This is on his Planet X news channel, and we can see this bright object very clearly. This one here, and it seems to have this very straight beam of light coming off it. Now, in his video, he seems to be suggesting that this is not Venus as claimed here in the stereo images, Sechi, and who else that you can check that actually gives us the information. So now we did have a look at this, and I went into Starry Night and checked the current positions of stereo A and the view towards the sun for these dates. And sure enough, we did confirm that it is indeed Venus. So we're going to try and do a bit of an analysis on what we're looking at here. I'll play a little bit of the video here and hear what Scott has to say about this. Now, I don't think you're actually hearing my audio on that, are you? Just.
Well, I could hear it.
Okay. Okay.
A little bit.
With a massive coronal mass ejection. So does NASA want us to believe that Venus now has a massive trail of light following behind it? Wow. Wouldn't this be fantastic and interesting to see Venus in the nighttime sky with a big stream of light falling behind it? Look, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just giving you my observations. Yes, I could be wrong. I'm only human. But I've been looking at these images on stereo and Sechi and LASCO, the coronagraphs, for a long, long time. I've seen some strange things, but today, well, today I have to mark on the calendar as being one of the strangest days because I've never seen a planet extruding a beam of light or energy or debris field behind it. And you know, taking into consideration the size of the sun over here, which would be the white circle right here. The black circle here is the occulter. This blocks out the rays of the sun, so the camera on the stereo craft is not overwhelmed by the light. It allows you to see what you're seeing. Does that look like a planet to you? All of this light, all of this energy, or has the imaging been doctored? Because
right, so I think that's enough of a soundbite of the video to get the idea of what we're looking at there. So now Scott says that he's been looking at these images for a very long time, and apparently he hasn't learned in all of that time to recognize a couple of things. One of them is CCD bleeding or blooming, which we frequently see in these images, which is the effect when the image sensor is overloaded and the individual pixels actually overload. And we get an overflowing of charge along the columns of pixels on the sensor, which give us a long, very straight spike of apparent light on the image. Now, those CCD spikes are always orientated perfectly vertical or perfectly horizontal. So that won't be what we're looking at in this case. So the other option is that we're looking at a lens anomaly, such as a lens flare. Now, have we actually seen this happen before, Tiffany?
Yes, I found videos of it. I saw some other videos of this. And also, he keeps talking about the way that it looks. Now, I did a video a few weeks back that the odd image of Venus explained, and this is a diffraction off of the occulter stem. Venus looks like that all the time. They call it the butterfly image of Venus. It does that a lot, and it's because when it's really, really bright. And you remember you said that Venus is at 100%, right?
That's right. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Now, I pulled up a couple of videos which I sent to Tiffany when she was asking me about this, and let's have a look. So I recorded these in Starry Night, and let's just drag that over there. See if I can pull that up. And here is the, let's just play this. So this is from Starry Night, and you can see I've got the date set to June 15. I've got the increment set to 15 minutes, which is how often the images update in the stereo A images. And we can see that it is indeed Venus in view. So there's no question. This is the view from stereo A, as we can see here on these dates. And this is coming up to June 17, which was the image that he presented in his video was on June 17 at it was about 8:09, as I recall, without checking. That's UTC time. So here we go, just coming up at the same time now. So we can see that that Venus is in the same position that we saw in the other image there. Now, the other one that I'll pull up is on this one here. Now, I downloaded the images from Stereo Ahead over a period of days, and this one goes right through until when Venus actually heads off and out of the field of view. So I'll step that ahead just to speed things up. Now, I slowed it right down as Venus was heading towards the edge of our view. And you'll notice that as Venus goes out of our field of view, so the bright light of Venus is not actually shining on the image sensor, then what happens to this big long spike of light? Let's see, gone, right? We can barely see it just as there's a little bit of light there. And that is typical of what happens when a bright object is causing a lens flare or a lens anomaly. Of course, as soon as it goes out of the field of view where it's no longer shining on the lens, then we do not see the lens flare. Now, it's important to remember, though, that an object can be out of view from the image sensor, but still shining on the lens of the camera and still producing a flare, even though the object is slightly out of frame. And I've been meaning to do a video to actually demonstrate this happening, because some people have claimed that you can't get a lens flare when the object is not in view, and that is simply not correct. If it's shining light on the lens itself, which can be at, you know, an angle away from the camera, it can still produce a lens flare even though that light is not falling on the image sensor.
And it will do like on the HI, I think it's HI that it does it, but there'll be like an arc, like a half circle will come from the sun, and it'll be it's a flare from Venus. As it leaves the field of view, it causes that flare. All of it is on the stereo image. If you go to stereo, to the image artifacts, it shows all these artifacts on there. It tells you about all those artifacts. And also, something that I noticed when I was looking at it, if you play it through, it looked like there might have been a flare or a CME that came in and it made it look brighter. That streak, it got brighter after that flare, I think. I think maybe that might have helped to make it look brighter.
Right. So here are the actual the images direct from the stereo website here. And let's just see if we can speed that up a bit there so we can get to the edge faster. So what's this, the 20th of June? Here we go. So I'll slow that down. You can still see that spike of apparent light, which is a lens flare, and gone.
There it is, gone.
Gone. Okay. So, you know, if this really was an object, Nibiru, Planet X, whatever you want to call it, a brown dwarf or whatever, and it had this beam of light coming off it, then it certainly wouldn't suddenly disappear as soon as the source object goes out of view. I've just reversed that. So we can see this, this beam of light, which is very long. Scott describes it as being, you know, 1 million miles long, possibly, comparing it to the sun. I mean, I don't even know how he can actually gauge its distance when he doesn't know how far away it would be. As it happens, as we're seeing Venus here, it's actually way over on the far side of the sun, because as we know, that Venus orbits the sun, and this part here, it's actually on the far side of the sun, so it's a long way away from us, which means that, you know, distances are affected by how far away an object is from you, of course. But anyway, let's play this forward again.
And then you know, Jerry found Mercury with that same. He said Mercury was getting in on the action, where it looked exactly the same where Mercury did that.
Okay, so let's look at this one more time. We've got that long spike of light just as Venus is about to exit our field of view, and let's run that forward. Going, gone. There it is. So where is this beam of light? It suddenly disappeared into nowhere, which you certainly wouldn't expect.
No, definitely not. If it was actually a part of it, you still will see it. I would think you would still see it if it wasn't a lens flare. That's like when you put your finger in front of the sun and the flare disappears. Yep,
that's right. Okay, I'm going to try and share my Starry Night, which is on my main PC. You'll notice that I'm in the Hangout twice for people who are watching the broadcast. I've got my laptop as a second participant in the Hangout. It's actually easier for me to share using my laptop, but we'll give this a try and see if I can pull up Starry Night so I can show you the orbit of Venus. Okay, now for some reason, it's not actually giving me, oh, hang on. There it is, I've got it. Now, we're not actually seeing the data on my screen, are we? We're just seeing a blank screen.
Yes, it's black.
Okay, let's try this. If I go in there, can you see anything now, Tiffany?
I see the screen, but it's just black. There's no images on it.
Okay, well, unfortunately, that's not going to work on this computer, so I'll have to set it up for my other laptop sometime. But I'll go back to the video. That's probably the easiest way, and take another look at that. Have you made any other sort of discoveries looking into this, Tiffany, just while I'm pulling that up?
No, that basically was, it explained it perfectly. Once we started looking into it, you could tell that it's pretty much a lens artifact, like a lens flare, or as AL call it, a diffraction off of that occulter stem. And then there are other videos where people were trying to figure out the same thing from different times. One from, I think it was September 2015, and it is in the exact same spot. It is in the exact same spot. So Astronomy Live said it was the occulter stem that will cause it to look brighter or cause a flare right there.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to share that again. Okay, so this is the view in Starry Night, and unfortunately this isn't live from my Starry Night program. I don't have the stereo A, stereo B set up on Starry Night on my laptop, which I need to add that in. But you can see the position of Venus here. Now, if I was able to turn on the orbit, you would see the orbit of Venus right around the sun. And you would see that Venus is actually on the far side of the sun. So it's not close to us, it's far away, which means that the sun is closer and the sun is shining 100% on Venus, which means that Venus is 100% illuminated and, of course, very bright in that case. And this is why it's so intensely bright, that it's giving off that that spike of light. It's just a lens flare, and being a lens flare, this is why the lens flare disappears when Venus goes outside of the field of view of the camera.
And I don't know why he keeps saying that it's not Venus. No matter how many times you try to explain why it looks that way, it doesn't matter. It's like they want a brown dwarf to be there so bad, they will call anything a brown dwarf.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks different. It looks different. It's a brown dwarf. That's what it is. And I did a video showing all those image artifacts. All those image artifacts.
Yeah. So now I just want to give Tiffany a plug here. Her video YouTube channel is Queenofhooks. You'll find a link in the description area after this broadcast. I'll put a link in there. And also Jerry has been doing some great work as well with his videos. You'll find a link in there. Jerry was hoping to join us, but unfortunately his microphone is not working. But we hope to have him on sometime in the future. Now, I'm just checking out the chat. Have you got the chat open there as well, Tiffany? I'm just reading through some of the comments.
Yes, I have that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and there was something that I did see when I had mentioned that about the tail of Venus. Was asking, you know, if Venus has a tail. It's like it's the ionosphere that will stream out, and it's like a tail. It's something that they've been studying for a while. It's actually pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's actually very, very cool.
Right. So we actually we discussed that, didn't we? And
yeah.
And
they can Google it. If you guys want to know more about it, just Google tail of Venus, and it talks about the Venus Express satellite, and I think it was the Pioneer orbiter that when they found it, and they found that there were holes in the ionosphere that caused it to stream in more because Venus doesn't have it doesn't have a magnetosphere, I think. So if you Google tail of Venus, it's very interesting. It is. It's very interesting. Venus is a very, very mysterious planet. I love Venus.
Right. Now, Venus has a very thick atmosphere, of course, and it's closer to the sun than the Earth. But the thing is, if this was a tail from Venus that we were looking at, as being discussed in these papers, and that is a very real thing about the tail, this from particles streaming off it. But the point being is that if we were actually seeing a tail from Venus here, which way would it be pointing?
It would be pointing away from the sun. Yes.
Okay, so just like comets, whenever comets are approaching the sun, the tail, or what we call the tail, normally a tail trails behind something, of course. So as a comet is approaching the sun, the tail is pointing away from the sun, as you would expect. But as the comet comes around the sun and starts heading back out in the opposite direction, the tail still points away from the sun, so that the comet ends up actually going tail first away from the sun. And that is because of the pressure of the solar wind streaming off the sun, pushing that tail away. It's rather like a wind sock that you would see at an airport with the wind blowing it away. So clearly this is not pointing away from the sun, and as we showed, it does disappear as soon as Venus goes out of the field of view.
It certainly does. Mystery solved.
Mystery solved. Yep. So of course this is all about clickbait for Scott from Nibiru News, Nibiru Planet X, The Awakening, whatever he wants to call himself. I find it hilarious too, of course, that he had to change his channel name from Nibiru Planet X 2016. He probably kicked himself for ever calling his channel that name, because you can bet that this time next year, Scott will still be making videos claiming, ladies and gentlemen, look at this. I've never seen this before. This is clearly a planetary object in our solar system, blah, blah, blah. And, you know.
Every year on September the 23rd, we're supposed to die. Every year.
Yeah, yeah.
That's been going on for years. And a lot of people don't seem to know that every year on September 23rd, we're going to die. And now it's this alignment that's supposed to happen that they're all going crazy about. And then that will, but see, if something was going to happen, if on the 23rd, we would already see it now. We would see it with the naked eye. It cannot hide.
Absolutely.
And they like to say it's behind the sun. Well, we rotate around the sun. We orbit the sun. We would eventually see a planet. It can't hide.
Yep.
It can't hide.
That's a very good point too, you know, that every 6 months or 6 months from any point in time, we're on the opposite side of the sun from when we started. And it means that nothing can hide behind the sun, because even in 3 months' time, we're a quarter of the way around the sun. And if anything was behind the sun, we would be able to see it. It's quite simple.
And this is something else that I was thinking about, because this has been going on for a long time. So if this was indeed a planet, Nibiru, coming into our solar system, it would come in and it would leave. It would not orbit the sun. It would not all of a sudden just decide, okay, I'm just going to stay here. I like it over here. It would come in and it would leave. So that doesn't make sense, that people think that it has been here all these years. What is it doing?
Yeah. You know, this all goes back to, what was it, 2003. Nancy Lieder said that Nibiru Planet X was arriving in 2003. And she advised all of her faithful followers that they should euthanize their pets, as she did to her 2 puppy dogs. Now, I think it's tragic. These 2 little dogs were killed by Nancy Lieder. And I hate to think how many people followed her lead and actually killed their pets.
That's horrible.
It is awful.
That is horrible.
And this is the sort of tragic danger that we're actually talking about, the sort of cult mentality that these people have. And you know, it is quite a worry that you've got people like Scott and other fearmongers, WSO, Steve Olson and others, putting this BS out there. And people sincerely believe that these guys know what they're talking about. And unfortunately, people like Scott can't even tell the difference between a lens flare and a brown dwarf. And you know, people follow these fools. That's what they are. And some of them are potentially suicidal. You know, we receive messages from people who are very anxious and fearful about the claims being made.
Yes.
And you know, we've actually had to talk down some people who are potentially suicidal because of their fears over all of this nonsense.
I actually had to talk to somebody on his channel. He didn't even have the decency to say something to her. She said that she was very scared and that she felt like it would be better if she killed herself and her family.
Yeah.
So I got on there and I don't think like that. You know, I know that these channels are sensationalized. They have clickbait and titles. When you get in there, you know, like the solar storms, these things have been happening since the beginning of time. So you're still here. I told her, if you see it, you will see a planet coming. It will be seen. There's not enough money to pay all these people. There are amateur astronomers. There are people who would love to find this, like Richard Mueller and Nemesis. He has been trying to find Nemesis since the 80s, and if he finds it, he's going to say it, because that is a epic discovery.
Mm.
Nobody there. I don't know any astronomer like you or Astronomy Live. If you see something is out there, you're going to say it. Like he's talking about this blue brown dwarf crap, and people are. I seen somebody ask him, you know, this would be a major discovery. Why don't you let the people know over there so you can get credit for it? No, he's not going to do that, because it is a dirty lens. You saw the video. I have brown dwarfs everywhere, where I found literally hundreds of pictures that look exactly like that. Yeah. I found a ton of them on a ghost website talking about spirit orbs, and it looks striped, and it's just dust or moisture on the lens. Does he care? I made mine look exactly like his. It was blue. I made it purple. I mean, you know, I could put that out there and stick it up there by the look, I found a brown dwarf there.
Now, I see that Scott from Nibiru News is in the chat, and he says, sorry, I don't buy into the whole suicidal thing. If these people are suicidal, they were suicidal before hearing about Nibiru, and Nibiru is providing them with a convenient excuse to just do it.
Oh, that's crap.
And this is the mindset of Scott. So he doesn't mind providing a convenient excuse to just do it, even though he knows that, okay, so Nibiru News just says, I'm not Scott. Okay, well,
it doesn't matter who he is. That is not an accurate statement to say about people. If you don't know the mindset of people in this world, there are people who are more fragile. There are people who think about this all the time. They think, okay, if this happens, they're telling people there's going to be a pole shift. All this stuff is going to happen. There are people who are genuinely afraid to go through that. There are people who don't want to even imagine trying to survive. What are you going to do? You just put yourself in that position. Put yourself in your house with your family, with your children, sitting at your table, eating dinner. And then all of a sudden, everything just goes haywire. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you're constantly thinking about it, and there are just a constant barrage of all this fear, then you have people who will say, well, I think that I'd rather not have my family suffering. You can imagine things. People fantasize about stuff. You could have people that might say they imagine the whole thing happening. Their kid is laying over here hurt or something like that. And then in their mind, they feel, you know, I would rather my family not suffer and just get it over with. I know for a fact that I have a woman who messages me all the time. She was pregnant. She has a child over, and you know who I'm talking about, where we've had to talk her down over and over and over again because she is terrified. There are people who have cosmophobia. This is genuine fear.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we have people on my VORTEX Facebook page too, who we regularly have to reassure because they see the latest video from this YouTube channel or that website, and you know, they think that there might be something in it. And just to clarify, just from the chat, no, Nibiru News was not Scott. I thought that was Scott from.
He said he doesn't like Scott too.
Yeah, he says he doesn't like Scott. But, you know, I know from talking to the real Scott that he has expressed this sentiment himself before to me and to others. And that, you know, I pointed out about that 16-year-old English schoolgirl who hanged herself over the whole Mayan calendar, end of the Mayan calendar thing. She hanged herself.
And then he said that was fake.
Yeah, he said it was fake. So he really disrespected that whole tragic situation. But he also tried to make it sound as if I was blaming him for the death of Isabel Taylor. That had nothing to do with Scott from Nibiru News Planet X. That was simply an example of the sort of thing that does happen when people, vulnerable people, see these sort of fear-mongering videos. And that's what they are. They're simply fear-mongering videos. And let's face it, year after year after year, these fearmongers tell us that, ladies and gentlemen, as Scott likes to say all the time, this is no planet. This is a brown dwarf, you know, and it's all just nonsense. All these lens flares and anomalies and all sorts of things that we're seeing, everything but a brown dwarf. Now, Tiffany, you mentioned too about if all of this was supposed to be happening on the 23rd of September, we would be able to see it well ahead of time. Now, unfortunately, people seem to have very short memories. Does anybody remember Comet Alanin and all the fuss over that tiny little comet? Mm-hmm. Does anyone remember Comet Ison and all the fuss over that tiny little comet? And does anyone remember how long it took those two comets from when they were first discovered way out in the solar system to when they came to closest approach to the sun? It took many months. And, you know, these comets have a nucleus of usually just a few kilometers across. So they are very tiny objects. But a brown dwarf is larger than Jupiter. And there is no way that an object larger than Jupiter, larger than the largest planet in our solar system, would go unnoticed until the last moment.
And it would look like a star at night.
Yeah, it would look easily as bright as Jupiter. And of course, as it got closer, it would become even brighter. And there's this whole myth about brown dwarfs are only visible in infrared. And as we've pointed out many times before, yes, that is true that brown dwarfs are imaged in infrared, and there's a very good reason for that. It is because the closest brown dwarfs are so very far away from our sun that they're too far away to reflect any visible sunlight. The nearest brown dwarf is 6.5 light years away, which is about 2 light years, in fact, over 2 light years, further away than the nearest stars to our sun. And if there was a brown dwarf within our solar system, it would reflect visible light, just like all of the other planets and moons and asteroids and comets do. There's nothing magical about a brown dwarf that would mean that it would not be visible in the visible light spectrum if it was close enough to our sun.
And then Great Bay he made a good point when he was talking about looking at Heaven's Gate and Jim Jones, and those are not the only ones. There was the Waco, David Koresh. There are people who will commit suicide, commit suicide.
Yeah.
Heaven's Gate thought that Halley's Comet was a spaceship.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole,
and all those people killed themselves.
it's a very tragic situation. Now, I see looking in Starry Night there. Oh, what's that just next to Mercury? Can you see that? Can you see what I can see? Can you see that, Tiffany?
That flare?
Oh, is that what it is? I thought it was a brown dwarf.
I've been looking at that the whole time it's been here. I was thinking to myself, look, it's the transparent planet.
Yeah, I thought I'd just leave that up for a while and see who would spot it. But that is actually a simulated lens flare within Starry Night. And I can actually turn that feature on and off if I right-click on the sun there and go to Halo Effects. You see I've got this lens flare option here, so I can turn that off. I can also turn off the flaring of the sun. But anyway, let's leave that on just for a minute, and let's pretend that that was a brown dwarf hiding behind the sun. Okay, so you can see the position of the Earth here at the moment, and I've got the date set to June 24th, 2017. So we've got the Earth here, got the sun over there, and we've got our imaginary brown dwarf hiding behind the sun. So let's step the time on 1 month at a time. I'm going to go forward 3 months, 1 month at a time. June, oops, that's jumped ahead. Let me step it this way. Yep, June, July, August. Okay, so where are we now? We're over here, and we're no longer looking directly at the sun when we look at this thing. We're actually looking over at this angle here. So our imaginary brown dwarf is no longer behind the sun. Let's keep going. September, October, November. Go 1 more month, 6 months later. We're on the opposite side of the sun from where we started, and you know, we would be right next to our imaginary brown dwarf, and we would have a pretty good view. In fact, if we go back a couple of months, we'll bring it back here, the sun would be shining on it this way, and we would be looking across the solar system at it this way, and we would be having a view that would be rather similar, like looking at the moon when it's approaching first quarter, which looks like half a moon in the sky. And you know, if this object was larger than Jupiter, it would be enormous. You look at how big and bright Venus looks in the sky. Well, this object would just be unmistakable. There would be no question about it.
Definitely, definitely.
Well, it's good to see that my Starry Night works on the laptop and I'm sharing from there. So I'll have to go with that in future, I think. I'll just have to make sure I import the stereo A and stereo B into Starry Night from my laptop so we can do these demonstrations. Okay, Tiffany, have you got anything else that you would like to add? I won't run the Hangout for too long. Keep it short and snappy if we can. But if you've got anything else you'd like to share or comment on before we wind it up.
No, I think covered it.
Right. Well, how about you give a little plug for your YouTube channel for us?
I'm Queen of Hooks. You could just put it in the search. Well, you're going to put it in the description.
Yes, I will.
I have tons of videos doing debunking. I have a mind manipulation series. Basically, that's it.
All right. So, yes, I'll put a link in the description area and also in the pinned comment, which will be underneath this video. So you can check that out. Go and check out Tiffany's excellent videos that she's been uploading. Tiffany is an excellent researcher. It's something she is very good at. She's very thorough. She dots her I's and crosses her T's, and also she's not afraid to ask. She's not afraid to reach out to ask other people if she's not sure about something, and that's the way that it should be. And you know, as I've said to Scott in the past, there's no need for him to be uploading videos of lens flares. I've also said the same thing to Chris Potter, of course. I extended an olive branch to him, which he never accepted. But there is no need for these people to be uploading images of lens flares and other identifiable objects and claiming that they are Nibiru Planet X. All they need to do is to reach out to people that do have the skills, and we would be happy to look at those images, share whatever information that we can. And of course, if we were unable to provide an explanation, then at least these people would be able to say Astronomy Live and Tiffany, Queenofhooks, or Dazzathecameraman, or anyone else could not provide an explanation for what we're looking at. And fair enough.
And if they don't want to ask us, they can do the research themselves. When you post a video and I can debunk your video in 5 minutes, he posted a video of these suns. Within 5 minutes, I debunked I found each image. It is not very hard to do the research to see if what you're really seeing is real. But that would mean there would not be a channel. There would not be content if they actually did research.
That's right. And this is what it is all about for them, of course. It is all about views. This is a full-time business for Scott from Nibiru Planet X, The Awakening. I mean, look at the number of videos that he uploads every day, every week. I'd love to be making a fraction of the number of videos that he uploads. I simply don't have the time nor the energy to do that. But as I say, this is a full-time business for people like Scott, and the more clicks that he gets, the more views that he gets, the more money that he makes. And that's what it all boils down to. As they say, follow the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think I'll wind it up. Thank you to everybody who has joined the live Hangout, and thanks to everyone in the chat. And we hope to do this again sometime soon. Thank you for watching.
Bye.